Hello, everybody. Welcome today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've got the very awesome Greg Doyle with me, and we're just going to catch up on the couch. We're going to talk a bit of what's what, and we love these topics that we're going to start rapping on about. And I think, hang on, is he back? He's back. Hang on. So I'll bring Greg on.
Yo, I'm here. How are you? Greetings.
I'm good, brother. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, quite chilly today. The first cold day yesterday was like 31 and today's 21. You can see I'm rugged up.
Hey, I was going to say, I don't know if I've ever seen an Australian in a hoodie, to be fair. Like at this time of the year.
It's the shock. It's the cellular shock because you're just used to, like I was outside earlier and it was like 22 and I'm going, what? And everyone's got jackets on and stuff because you just, all of a sudden it's change. It's like winter all of a sudden. Quite weird.
I remember coming to Brisbane when I was about 16 or 18. I can't remember. It was one of those two ages, and I came with my family, and we came from New Zealand. And Dad would bring us over outside of the school holidays because it's not so busy to go and do all the theme parks. And there's these four Kiwis getting off the plane wearing hoodies and like jeans and stuff. We're walking around, and everyone's in shorts and t-shirts. And we couldn't get to the hotel room to change for a couple of hours, so we're wandering around surfers. And it was pretty funny.
Yeah. It is hilarious. I know it takes a while. Yeah, it's a funny thing. Do not disturb. There you go. Very nice. So it's kind of a bit of a shock actually. It's sudden cold weather.
Brilliant.
But I'm well. I like it because we can pretend we're in a colder climate.
That's it. Oh, you get to change your wardrobe and stuff. But anyways,
I miss
that. yeah. It's nice to wear clothes. Wear a few more.
Totally. I love it.
Yeah. Hey, all right, my brother. Well, where are we going with this? So let's go straight into where are we? Okay, cool. Now I've got to ask this question because we talked about this before, and so for those that don't know, Greg, I'll actually just introduce your website here. Okay, it's not that one. Here we go, gregdoyleastral.com. And this is a really awesome website. It's got so much stuff, and he's got a very cool intro video there that's well worth checking out. And I think everyone who hasn't come across Greg's work should definitely go and check this out, so you can get a bit of a snapshot of who this chap is and what he's about. And for those who are familiar with Greg's work, we're just going to sort of dive into conversation rather than go through a big introduction. So first of all, Greg, I labeled this conversation exploring the greater reality, and this is a constant running theme for me when I talk to people about like what happens when we have a glimpse of something that maybe is so far out and so new to us, and generally one of two things will happen. We'd be like, oh, this is interesting. I want to follow this and see where it leads me. Or it's like, wow, okay, that was too bizarre. I can't deal with that. And this is like the fork in the road for the higher self, if we want to frame it like that, to say, hey, look, here's an opportunity to see that there is something else going on. And it can be, it's a big thing, because ultimately what I've found for myself is that this has led me to strive towards bettering myself, but also but it's a very fun way of doing it, because it's a very expanded and curious and interesting, and it's definitely not a same shit different day kind of reality that's unfolded. And so I guess what I'm sort of leaning towards asking as a question here is, how did you find, people who've listened to us talk before or listened to your other interviews and listened to your story, you've mentioned that you found Reiki through an out-of-body experience or otherwise, and then you had an experience, and I'll let you tell it, but you were previously a high-level classical musician playing in an orchestra environment, if I'm correct. And and as a musician myself, or as I'd probably say ex-musician nowadays, I'm fully aware of the level of training and skill that's required for that. And so to sort of leave that, that's a huge amount of effort to leave behind. But what I found is that as I sort of started entering into these more, what's the word for it, these more mysterious kinds of realms and conversations, and that it's like I had no regret about leaving it behind so much, because I was chasing something that seemed to be leading towards something far more meaningful. And whereas people were saying, what are you doing, man? You're leaving behind such a great thing, why would you do this? And so I guess for me, I'm just asking you here, brother, like, what were your feelings when you were going through this sort of early phase of the transition, when everything was coming at you and you were like going, okay, well, which way do I go? And then you chose, and yeah, I don't know if you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think in the beginning, as you say, I knew it was something big, like when this opening happened, my first experience, there was that pulling, but of course it's tricky because the greater part of me, this, I'm not being negative about it, but this egoic part of me that wanted to succeed in music, that was, I was a Capricorn, I was used to headbutting, the hard slog, I was being a good, noble person. This was a noble quest to go higher in this field. And but I just knew this this other thing that was going on, because remember, I'd done meditation since my early 20s, so I'd kind of had this on and off relationship with meditation, knowing that reaching these states of relaxation felt so good. But then a part of me, that part of me that was struggling with my career and wanting to go further in that, and kind of more recognition, if you like. I also thought, well, the other part, the meditation part that feels so good, is that a cop-out? Part of me thought, oh, maybe that's just a cop-out, because that sounds a bit easy. That sounds like, even though it's the path less traveled, and it actually was a path that I had no idea what it would be, it sounded a little bit of a cop-out, because I was just this notion of, a good person struggles. And a lot of people are brought up in this thing that a good person struggles. While on a certain point it was good, but I think when I started having these experiences that were, hyper real, what I call astral experiences, or spiritual awakening, really, all part of that, I think in my normal life, if I put it that way, as a musician, I started to question my motives. When I would conduct, because conducting was my thing, and I really wanted to, I was auditioning for big orchestras and getting some relative success, but I wanted more. And I remember thinking a few times, why am I actually doing this? What do I actually want? So these experiences I was having made me look at myself and think, okay, that was a good concert. I go home after it and something feels empty. I'm not sure what it is. And I started to think, hang on, what is this? Like, how am I serving the music? And the whole thing was, for me, I remember saying to my mum at the time, saying, I don't know, I don't really feel as though I'm helping humanity. And she said, yeah, no, you're helping humanity. You're performing and people are enjoying that. That's great. I said, yeah, but I don't know. I had this feeling of something deeper. And after these experiences started to happen, I started to really struggle with my role as a musician. It was an internal struggle. Like, am I doing it? And you get a certain amount of, credit for what you do. And I'd really think, well, do I really need to have that clap, that applause? Do I really need to have people pat me on the back? I don't know. And it's nice always to be told, oh, good job. But there was something more. It was like this voracious thing that I knew, even then, back then, I knew that I was never going to fill it. It would never be enough. Also, that was hand in hand with becoming very authentic. And I found that people of great importance in my career were presenting themselves to me, and I was derailing certain situations, or I was saying what I felt. I was not being as diplomatic as I should have been, this kind of stuff. And not poo-pooing that profession at all, but I felt this kind of this feeling of to be absolutely authentic. I don't even know what that meant. It would just come through me. I just I just had to be me. I just had to be me, whatever me meant, but that, and then that feeling of being me got stronger and stronger, sort of like the feeling of something greater than what I was doing, Yeah.
Great. That's great. I mean, that's it. And I can totally relate to that because, as this has unfolded for myself as well, it's funny because, I had this really strong interest in my career and what I was doing. And then all of a sudden it just was like, what, I must say towards the end, I was struggling a bit because I was a hardcore like music teacher. And, as that's quite a bit different from being a musician. And so, I was already kind of like, at the end of the music teaching kind of part of my life. But, when the music really stopped, when it hit a wall, and I was like, well, what else is going on? What else is available? What's the next thing that's gonna nourish me and I guess enthuse me and inspire me? And yeah, it's funny how things just come about, in a way that's quite curious. And after sort of, I've read your book and I've watched, we've talked many times and that too, and to see how curiously coincidental it is that there's other speakers, commentators, and authors who are in this sort of consciousness arena, various aspects of them have come from being musicians and gone, I don't really feel like this is. But I don't really feel like this is a potent method of sort of like positive change, or it's like it was fun and it kind of got me out of the corporate world or whatever it was, but it was more like, something that they went through and it led them to something else. And I found that to be curious because, this happened to myself as well, and in a sense to you too. But anyway, back to your story, because it's quite interesting about, you were living, I think you were living in Austria, was that correct? And
yeah, and that's when it started.
Because I've got friends who have trained in Austria, and that sounds pretty serious to a lot of people. I mean, that's a big life investment to go and do this sort of training and go and hang out, learn a new thing, and then at some point to go, okay, well, something else is coming up here. And like you said, for myself anyway, I experienced an expanded awareness, and then I wanted to. I just started seeing things and feeling things differently, and I think too. I'm just trying. I had my finger on something just before that I wanted to ask you, but obviously these transformative experiences. It's almost like the awakening happens in layers, in a sense, where you like you said, you're trying to be me, even though you weren't too sure what that was. But when you were in social situations and you were being yourself, and maybe you weren't being so diplomatic, but it's like it's so hard to be anything else than what you are, especially when you have a good knowing of that because you have an expanded awareness. And so was that something that carried on for a while? And did you find that was a real catalyst for, changing your social status and situations with your friendships and relationships and such?
Oh, totally. And I think in the beginning, you kind of hide away a little bit. You sort of, something big has happened. It feels very real. It feels very, for want of a better expression, loving almost. This was the thing. It felt in this heart opening as well. Like, wow. I mean, you try to equate it. Yeah, with music, I felt that, but it was somehow more conditional, whereas this felt it was coming from somewhere else. So you just can't quite shake it, and in the beginning, you're kind of careful who to share this with. You have certain friends who you think, okay, I'll share a little bit of it, but then you're kind of guarded. For a long time, I was quite guarded about that experience. I kept a lot of it to myself, and then I remember it was because it was really about. Oh, and just a couple of years after this sort of first awakening was when a crossroad happened to me. I was in Austria, then I came back to Oz. This is 2000, 2001, 2001. Oh, 2000. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, about 20 years ago, I came back to Oz, and then I had it was really interesting. It was like the last straw was handed to me. I remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to be a professional musician anymore. I did do a bit of teaching as well at that stage when I came back to Oz, because I didn't want to play, I didn't want to conduct. I did a little bit of conducting, but not much. Anyway, and then it was really weird. I remember going out with some musos because my wife's a musician, and we went out after this concert of, I think it was Sydney Symphony Orchestra visiting Melbourne. And this guy said to me all of a sudden, Greg, the conductor of the Sydney Symphony is some Italian conductor. Yeah, he understands people like you. I had a chat to him about you. What? Yeah. Go to Italy and do some stuff with him there, and he'll kickstart your career again. You can do it if you want it. And I went home. I thought, oh no, this has been handed me on a platter. Do I want to go to Europe? Do I want to jump in? And I really thought about it. This is 20 years ago. I remember that. And it was like the crossroad. It was a fork, and I just thought, okay, what do I want to spend my time? Do I want to study scores, musical scores, or do I want to delve into consciousness? But I chose to go into consciousness. But I remember, well, that's what I say. What does that mean at the time? I just started out with Reiki, but I remember still, even though it was kind of, I made that decision, I still had dreams years after where I'm still in music, and there was a certain sadness that came with it because I was leaving a part of me behind. For a while, I couldn't go to concerts. I didn't want to hear classical music. Even though I'd made that decision to go that way, I loved this other world, but I knew that's where I was going to go. But I still, and that is the human struggle, isn't it? And over the years, of course, it's gotten easier. But it is fascinating. I think that shove in that direction. And then the last time I conducted a concert, I was just a youth thing. I remember it was in Victoria somewhere, and it was the very last concert I conducted, and it was like a music camp thing, a good quality one. It was some Beethoven thing. And I remember I might have told you, but I felt invisible hands pulling me away from the podium, and it was I remember just sweating, and I remember sweating, thinking, but during that whole process, I felt like I was out of body, not in the best sense. I remember that it was a 2-week kind of music camp with these good young musicians and stuff, and it was kind of like, I don't want to be here. I don't know, this is not right. It was like I was an organ that was being rejected, and I just felt it just was the weirdest experience. And that was, so really it wasn't so strange that I felt these palpable hands pulling me away, and I just thought, okay, just finish it and be done with it. And then that's it. So it's kind of like a dovetailing of the old career. As you say, you tend to go from music into teaching a bit because you're wanting to sustain an income, and that's easier to, and plus a bit of conducting, that kind of stuff. And then it was kind of like, okay, I got to the point of that's it. That's it, But so even though it's a clear-cut decision, you have to wean yourself still, and it's fascinating, it really is fascinating. And also in the teaching world, in that kind of, working with students, I was becoming belligerent. I was becoming an employee that I wouldn't want to have. I was just saying my truth. I was experimenting with invisibility because, as you know, that's a big theme of mine, this notion of not actually being here. So literally someone would be in the same room, they'd be asking me something that I didn't want to be involved with, so I'd literally not respond. I would have come across as though I was majorly autistic, perhaps. I don't know. Really, really quite funny looking back at it. I literally just look through them. So I would have come across as, so I was becoming unemployable. So it was kind of working from the hands being taken away from the concert career to moving into a bit of teaching, and then that being also filtered out. Like this guy, even though I liked working with kids, but the politics, as you know, I just couldn't. And I was attracting bosses who I was having friction with. I was just attracting, the last 2 bosses I had, I just didn't get on with. I just did not get on with. Hilarious. So I started not to really like myself. And that's when I realized, okay, this is interesting. As I said, I started to feel belligerent, and that doesn't really help. You've got to think, well, I'm in a toxic environment. For me, for someone else, the environment's not toxic. For me, it felt toxic. Okay. And as I can only live my life, I am the universe expressing itself through me. So for me, it was a toxic environment. Therefore, remove yourself from the environment, which I did. And then then I could rebuild from there.
Yeah, you just dropped so many relevant points there that I can relate to as well. And when I went back into the teaching, I quit the teaching and I got back into it, and I was trying to be more creative, and I was bringing mindfulness in, getting the kids to breathe, and like trying to fuse the two worlds together. And I mean, I could probably do that, but I mean, the kids want to learn songs, and I mean, as a guitar teacher, and I like rock and pop music back in those days. And we'd watch a video, because I started getting into one-on-one lessons as well, and it was cool. It was a good personal interaction. But we're watching these music videos, and I'm like just seeing all this symbolism, and then I'm getting songs stuck in my head, and I'm talking to the kids about stuff, and I'm like going, "Oh man, I don't want to teach what these kids want to learn." And you kind of want them to be a bit self-directed. I'm like, "Oh man, how do I do this? Do I go into being a classical muso where it's just instrumental type music?" And then it's like going, "Oh, then you've got big expectations, and then you've got to up your skill sets and all that, and that's a big ask." And I'm like going, "Oh man." And I just thought, you know what? Maybe it's just not my bag anymore, baby, and being honest with that. And then taking the moves, because so this conversation we're having, everyone who's watching right now, we're just saying, this transition process of like going, is this real? Am I losing my mind here? Am I having a midlife crisis? Or is that the wrong word? Or is that just a derogatory term to say, like something else higher is calling me here? I'm losing interest in things that the majority of people are like, "Phil, you're such a cool player, man. Everyone wants to be in the band." And it's like, "Phil, what's wrong? Come for a jam." And it's like, well, I'm just not into it anymore. And I think that's, I just withdrew. And I have been for years trying to figure this out, and that's the only way I knew kind of how to deal with it, brother, is because I didn't really have a frame of reference. There were people who were kind of talking about these topics, but generally speaking, I couldn't have a very open, honest, authentic conversation with someone else because they just weren't around. And so, I started looking online and meeting, and that's how I came across yourself and that. And but yeah, this is tricky for me, and I can imagine for other people who've come from very practical backgrounds, and then go, "Man, how do I make this work?" And that kind of leads us to your current chosen profession, in a sense, which is obviously there's more than just one, but the Reiki journey, and I like that term because I'm discovering for myself that this thing that has many facets to it and many understandings seems to be a really great launching point for a lot of people who are looking to expand themselves into a new arena. It's almost like a soft landing into a new kind of career terrain, or a career, or a trying to merge these two worlds. And because here's the thing, if you can work what you practice, like your practice, like as a musician, if you're a music teacher, that's helpful because you're reinforcing those skills, and vice versa. But when you're a Reiki practitioner, and and you're on this track as well, it kind of feeds into itself, and it can enable you to be more immersed in that world that you're seeking to explore. And so I'd love to hear, a little bit about, how you found Reiki to be something that, and just tell me, did it open doors for you that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, I just knew it was the way to go. I remember still in Vienna, and I'd had experiences that were leading me to Reiki, and I found out about Reiki, and I became obsessed with the hands. I thought, well, musician, all this sort of stuff. But then I just thought there's something divine about the hands. I just thought there was something that was more than just my hands. I don't know. There's something about the hands. You think of Michelangelo, that beautiful painting, and I just got all these books on the subject, but I felt like, like some people are very psychic and they go into this and they're doing healing to start with. I wasn't like that. I was doing music and a bit of meditation here and there. So I thought, well, I don't know. Can I do this? Can I do this? I don't know. Do I have these attributes? And it's very interesting. I just think that sometimes people ask me at Reiki courses, "Oh, can anyone do this?" And I say, well, if you have the pull toward it, yes. if you have the pull toward it, you don't have to be talented. Like in music, you kind of got to have a certain talent. But also having looked at students, music students, there were those who just really wanted it, and they often surpassed those who were more talented because they just loved it and they just played and played. So, it was weird because I thought, well, realistically, where's this going to go? I'm looking into energy, and we do all do the thing working with energy balls, and I'd be looking at the I think I'm reading the Barbara Brennan book, Hands of Light, and looking up at the sky and seeing bits of light and stuff, and just sort of starting from scratch, really. For me, the transition, it took years. I still I stopped teaching altogether music in 2011. That was 10 years ago. And even after that, it was, even though I'd done Reiki and I'd been teaching Reiki a bit, but, as you know, I went overseas to Spain for a couple of years, and I just felt I needed to short circuit my old life. I had an opportunity to short circuit my old life. That was when I wrote my book. And it was a feeling of, I still felt I wasn't quite myself. So it was kind of, I was able to fall into the pool of myself for these 2 years. Just, so I needed that. It was a bit like being in a cave, I guess. I just needed to just be, just be, and just sort of, I just wanted to write a book. Where that was going to go, I don't know, because, and as you know, like with Reiki, it's not always easy. I remember in Melbourne, I was doing Reiki a bit, but I was still doing the music teaching. And I noticed that when I'd say to people I'm doing Reiki, I'd often be a little whispering to the side. And that was, even to me, then I could tell that was a telltale sign of, well, what is going on here? How am I, what is this in my life? And I knew I loved it. I remember the first course I taught. I became a Reiki master in 2005, and I think immediately after I finished the course, I had a weekend course lined up to teach with mega people, and probably a bit too much to take on. And but I remember coming away from it going, wow, that was amazing. I just want to be doing that all the time, And I just remember these times of clarity, and even though it didn't happen just like that, like it still took years. And times when, is this going to work? And I try something here and there, and I tried in a few different places doing Reiki, and I thought, is this going to be, I still want to live. I want to make enough money to live. So the transition, as anyone into like doing this kind of stuff full time, I guess that is life. That is the journey, So one has one's ups and downs. But I remember coming back from, and I did, I loved Reiki. I remember when I learned it and felt all these tools. I'd often sit with the symbols, and I guess I did a lot of meditation, but I felt just so hungry for clients that in the beginning, they're not coming. They don't know about you, They don't know. And I just sit there thinking, I want to do this. And then I think, I come back to Brisbane, if we just sort of go forward. And then I thought, well, I'm going to be totally open here. I'm not anything. I'm just me. I don't know. And I remember saying to myself, I don't know. And, and then it was kind of like, I realized I had a good friend, a sound healer, and he said, look, Greg, it's great that you, it really helped actually. He said, it's great that you, and I sounded out a few people. I knew a hypnotherapist in Melbourne. He said, Reiki sounds like a sect, sounds like a Japanese sect. Don't do it. And I just thought, don't know about that. Sounds like a sect. And I started thinking, what am I actually doing here? Should I call it something else? And then someone said, Greg, this is wonderful that, you're Reiki, you love it and all that kind of stuff. But you have no, what do you want to do with it? And I want to make it so you want to make it a business. It's okay to say that word. Yeah, I want to make it a business. Is that kind of a bad thing to say about Reiki? And then I remember laughing, inside thinking, of course, you have a right to live. And then that was only then that I seriously started to, as you mentioned, my website started to actually think of, okay, so I've got to put it out there in ways that aren't just, I want to do Reiki, which can be good, but one actually has to help oneself. And so you got to look at my personal path was looking at the obstacles also, like, because I realized I want to do this, but I thought obstacles are stopping me from going further in this are actually kind of lacks within me, like, lack of confidence or whatever. So one has to, and I remember this particular guy was helping me, just said, look, just say yes. Like if anyone says, can you do this, can you do that, just say yes. And I like that. And for me, it was very different. As a musician, we operate from a certain part of the brain. So I'd never thought from that notion of actual logical structuring of something. And in many ways, I know a lot of healers, and it's not a criticism, but for me, I felt I could feel the cop out there. And I guess I looked back into music. I remember someone saying to me with conducting, when things weren't going my way, I wanted to, for me, it was the end of the world when I came second in this international conducting competition in Romania, because I wanted to win it. I wanted to win it. When I came second, the world crumbled. I was, and I remember someone said to me, well, do you really want it? You win it if you really want it. And I thought to myself, do I really want it? And I thought, holy shit, the fact that I'm asking myself this question, do I really want, this, and I thought it's fascinating, this notion of what one puts out to the cosmos. And so I think, as you say, we were talking before this podcast thing about, the certain, like I've got this Vibra Lounge and a Pandora Star and certain other things like tech, spiritual tech, if you like toys. And it's like, you've kind of got to find the fun in things. And I think for me, I was thinking Reiki is very serious, very heavy. We're talking healing. And as you know, I've been in my book. This guy rocked up in my book in my stomach. He used to laugh at everyone who had a drama. He would laugh at, and he literally did rock up. And I have him on my desk to remind me of the cosmic joke and the illusion, actually, and what actually isn't, and the lack of. It's funny because the laughing Buddha, I know I'm ranting here a little bit, but I'm probably on the same topic. But this laughing Buddha represents no material possessions. Now, while I'm talking about a job like being a Reiki master and working in that as a profession, which I don't see as incongruent or as a dirty word at all, the laughing Buddha, not having possessions, what that really means is, if we put it in this context, it means you can still have the job and doing it, and exchanging, of energy with people. But the possession aspect is kind of the weight of expectation, or so you can change what, like, it just doesn't, we're not living on the road, we're not living as monks. So I had a good look at that notion that we do live in our society, and there's a certain amount of existential stress that a lot of people have, and you don't want to have that. And so, because I know a lot of healers who work in that way, they don't know where the next meal's coming from, and they're great healers, but they're putting up with that existential stress, thinking that somehow that's a noble thing. And I think this is where things have changed. I know, a couple of generations back, there was my Reiki grandmaster, if you like, was one to have that vow of what's it called, poverty, honestly, and there is a bit of that thinking. So, and this is very much a theme. I just remember this sound healer. He was great because he just sort of looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" Oh, I've got Reiki clients. Yeah, that's good, but you've got no structure. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. So you've got this underlying stress going on. And he said, don't you love yourself,
Ooh,
and I thought,
that's deep.
I do love myself. Well, then you've got to look after yourself, and and that is interesting. And I still know other healers who literally live in. I know a healer in Brisbane who lives in absolute squalor and absolute stress, and is a magnificent healer, but just refuses to have any internet presence whatsoever because she sees that as a negative.
Unfortunate.
So yeah, it is. But this is changing, and this is like the whole tech thing, like this whole, the joy of like, while I still think it's all within a person, like, the spiritual work we do is internal, like, and you go, like for me, like meditation is the big thing for me, for what I'm doing for me. That helps me with my Reiki and all that kind of stuff. But I use these things like the light, and I use this vibra lounge, and I use a pyramid, and they're kind of tools, kind of toys. They're fun, but I know if I've got to shift something, if I want to shift it, because I've still, will go to sometimes another healer, because sometimes you can't all do it on your own,
Yeah.
And that's the thing to learn as a healer as well, that sometimes it's nice to go somewhere else and ask for help and get some other input. But there's an aspect of fun and an aspect of enjoying it probably more than I did years ago. And I think that is the end of me speaking right now.
You just what you're talking about there is like I think that like you said, the cosmic joke, or whatever we want to call it, right? What's going on here? I mean, there's, I think that playfulness. I mean, some of the most vibrant people that I know in this kind of community and stage arena, they're just such fun, and and they're mostly girls. I mean, there's some dudes out there too.
True.
And there's this thing about when you're on this path, and let's say you take the path of the mystic, and you are wanting to nourish and nurture that at every opportunity, without having to be on all the time or trying all the time. You just are. You're just being, right? There's this concept I came across. There's a great, well, he's not in Australia, but he's an Australian chap. His name is Mark Rasmus, and he's well worth checking out. Great metaphysical teacher. But he talks about the importance of the short game, which is to keep your spirit nourished and keep you enthusiastic and keep it fun. In fact, I shared a video today of him talking about, I can't remember what it was, but it was the psychology of creating masters, because he teaches teachers and things like that. And he talks about, you can either work hard, or you can, work hard or play fun, or fun play. Hard work or fun play, that's the one. And so what happens is that by nourishing the short game, by appealing to yourself, because you know what you like. I mean, you've got some toys there, and I mean, you've got a little toy room, and isn't it cool? I remember as a kid going around to my friends' places, and they'd have all their cool toys, their Transformers or whatever it was, and then I would have my stuff, and we'd come out and be like, oh, this is great, and what that does is it really releases that inner child. I mean, I'm in my early 40s, and I still just get excited about stuff, and I think maybe that's, and I look to my friends who are the same age. Don't get me wrong, they've got kids, they're pretty tired in that, but a little bit of the spark's gone there, and they're kind of in the, they're in the trenches, man, I tell you. But this idea of the short game, so that you can keep the long game alive and well, because you got to stay alive with this. And I can see how people get burnt out. I know some people who started on this track, and it didn't work out for them for whatever reason, and it's unfortunate because they're wonderful and all that, but they did kind of resign to go, well, maybe this isn't for me. And it's like, well, I think part of one of the reasons why I really like talking to you is because you're established. You have so many pearls and gems to offer people who are aspiring, because seriously, there's enough work for everybody in this, and I think this is also a noble path, because we're fusing to get, like, we don't live in the East or in countries where the monks are all fed and clothed by the community in the villages. We're in the different part of the world here. We got to fend for ourselves. And so, I'm fully aware of this concept of like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this to earn money and all these sorts of things. And I'm like going, are you crazy? Like, I know people who are just as spiritual, who are atheists in a sense, and they're doing good work, and they're quite happy to take money for it, and they live well. And it's through that living well that they're able to amplify their presence and what they're able to offer the world. And, you brought it up at the beginning, brother, when you said, when you're talking to your mum about the music thing, thinking, I don't really feel like I'm doing enough, or this is really doing much, or anything at all. And I felt the same. And I mean, I was teaching young young people, and and I was considered to be, I guess so. I was a very popular teacher, and I had a lot of people coming to me, and I had, I was constantly, having a backlist of people and that, and and I thought, oh man, and people saying, oh Phil, you're such a good role model in that, and I'm like going, yeah, I guess so, but the material that I'm sharing is more like a short-term stimulation. It's not really dealing with the underlying situation here. There's other levels here, and just listen to when you hear people talk about their favorite band and go, oh, they got me through the hard times. Choice, but what about the actual work so that they, how to you build the resilience for when those times become hard. And it turns out that there's a really fun way of doing that. And I had a great conversation in the supermarket yesterday with a couple of ladies. One lady was talking to, and then another lady just popped in. I'm talking about lucid dreams in the supermarket, and I started getting a bit of a crowd around me. It's pretty funny, saying that you can use these things to help you develop yourself, and it's fun because it's like a mythical quest, or you can frame it however you want. And I mean, one of the things that you're most well known for, of course, is the astral aspect. Your out of body experiences, astral projection experiences, and how did you find like the captivation and the energy, like when you get up after having a full on experience? Do you feel energized and tell us about that? Share some of that with us, brother.
You do. You kind of feel. You feel a bit physically tired, but phenomenally energized. So tired from the point of view that, wow, like if you've been up watching a late night movie or something because you've been busy consciously at night, but it somehow cranks something up in your system. It's interesting because what I found is when watching what I call real-time astral is like a ghost, basically, in this reality watching. So the astral body goes out of phase of the physical body generally before dawn. All of this rejuvenative energy comes into the astral body, and then the astral body takes that into the physical body. So the astral body receives this. So there is that rejuvenation already, but if one is awake in the astral body, it's like the rejuvenation times 100. Like there's this feeling of the spirit somehow having conscious touch with home, and for some reason that's very exciting. It's like today I experienced something real. So for me, when I have an astral experience, it's like say I'm a little kitten in fenced in a yard. It's like the hedge was parted for that split second. I'm able to look through it at the real world, and then I'm back in the hedge again. So, and I'm not criticizing the hedge. That is, a lot of it is the human conscious experiences within this hedge, right? But I'm just going, wow, 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 for so long, because it's that glimpse, that conscious glimpse, that is just like so amped, and it so amps me up, and it kind of, it gives me that joie de vivre, that feeling of, yeah, baby, I want more. Like I want more of everything. Like I just see more color in things. I just see more beauty in things. I feel more connection to everybody. I feel there's no separation because when you have those astral glimpses, there is no separation. You know it, right? So you bring back a bit of that awareness, and it's almost like if I don't have an astral experience for a while, I think that's okay, because I know that I'm embodying those things. I'm allowing them to sit in my field and to be that. And I think that's what I said to you about how the astral experience has actually brought Reiki to me, or brought me to Reiki. Same thing. So, but yeah, it is. But I feel more and more. I kind of actually enjoy life, and as you say about a lot of people being in the trenches at a certain age because of responsibilities. What I found is a lot of kids do have astral experiences. They do have lucid dreams. It seems with the weight and the responsibility of the Western mind, of Western adults, they tend to often lose that ability to play, and that goes hand in hand with this having these experiences, because it is a playful thing. And as you were saying earlier, like I do lead a very playful life. Actually, in my days off, I'm either at the beach, or yesterday I was paddling a foam surfboard on a lake about 10 minutes away. people kayaking past me in the full kayak gear. I'm just paddling there in my board shorts in the middle of this lake, swimming, and like I've just got to. I know that's about me. I've got to get out in nature. That's my place to reconnect as a human. I have to, and I very much follow those cues now. Like ever since, because I was handcuffed and taken away from conducting, I know if I feel okay, my spirit's saying, take a day off, then take a few days off, just have fun, go and play under the pyramid, go and do that, try something else here, go for a drive here, go for a big walk, go for an epic walk out there somewhere. So for me, I think it's a way of balancing, because it's very metaphysical, the professional life I lead and also the life I'm interested in, all those, all my hobbies. Therefore, I've got to balance it by really enjoying the physical. I really enjoy the physical. I listen. And I know there are those who it's difficult. I actually have a few clients who are healers themselves who have real physical issues because they're very empathetic. They take a lot of stuff, or rather sympathetic, actually. They take a lot of stuff on. And the other day there was a woman who was there for healing. And she said, Greg, she said, you obviously don't take too much on, do you? Because I was talking about the difference between empathy and sympathy, and how, at healing it's important to, that guy, this guy, it's important to, you can actually have a good laugh and a grin and heal without getting absorbed by the drama of whatever your client has. And I kind of thought to myself, she said, you don't take it on, do you, And I thought to myself, that's interesting she said that. I thought, no, I don't, and it's there's a certain detachment that really keeps you in good stead, and it doesn't mean you're cold-hearted. I actually learned that from these people I used to visit in the astral. They kind of had no egos, or they had no emotional bodies, and this is why I do harp on about the notion of being invisible, but just this feeling of being a bit of a kid, childish in the best sense. And I had a great realization when I was a little kid, and brought up in pretty traumatizing circumstances, actually. And I kind of knew it was going to be traumatizing as a little kid somehow. But I remember, I remember thinking that life was like a circle. I thought I'm going to have to go through all this rubbish, all this drama, all this trauma to come back to where I started. And I kind of feel like I'm back where it started a bit, and that I feel that I'm better service to the world and those around me if I am more me, if I serve myself, because and it is the classic notion of the glass overflowing kind of stuff. And I think it's not, society would say that could be a slightly selfish or self-centered way of thinking, but I actually think it's vital and pivotal for anyone in our arts to look after themselves in the best sense, and to love yourself. It's all about self-love, isn't it? We were discussing this the other day on phone, and I think Reiki really is you're literally channeling self-love from that client's higher well of energy. That's because the universe is all about self-love. It's teaching us that there is no disconnection. And getting back to your original question on the astral, I mean that the overwhelming vibe in the astral is of unconditional love. Like, you are that. You just know that there's no buts and ifs. There's no maybes. There's no kind of cold shoulders. There's no, oh, you didn't do that very well, therefore you don't. There's no this or that. There's no punishment for being lesser than, because there's the feeling of you are not lesser than. So there's no lack. So this is the beauty. So I think over the years, one kind of learns as a Reiki practitioner, one kind of learns, I guess, to be Reiki, not to do it.
That's a very mystical sort of like phrase there. I love it, and you're absolutely right, because this is the thing, right? So I go to an open mic night with my guitar, and I'm busting my chops out, and I've still got it, baby. I've still got it. You know what I'm saying? And then I walk out of there with an inflated ego, and I'm like, I'm still feeling good. And then I get home and it's done, and then I just feel this, and I'm like, and I'm like, I actually don't like that. I mean, I would have rather. I mean, as much as I like entertaining people because it's fun to watch them smile and things like that. But it was such a downer afterwards, you know. I think about the gigs that I've played in front of lots and lots and lots of people. I played in front of thousands of people and things like that, big events. And, you know, the high that you get from it and then all the attention and that, and it's really cool. And then, to be fair, nowadays I could quite easily not have that at all. Actually, I really enjoy quietude and stillness and deep introspection and these types of things. And, I mean, it's just, I can see how that's so alluring and attractive to people to have all that attention. But like you were saying, you know, it's you know, you've got to. I think there's different flavors of selfishness, and you know, I didn't plan on becoming a music teacher, but when I just ended up doing it because it was an obvious thing to do. And so my joy led me to that. And that ended up bringing lots of joy to other people because I was doing what brought me joy. So like you said, I'm just overflowing and all these things start showing up. And so here's a good message here from Original Upman. Exactly. Being of service to oneself and then to others. And, you know, when it's just a natural outgrowth of you're playing and it's attracting people and they want a part of that, and your heart's open and you're like, hey man, yeah, join in the fun. I'll create a capacity where other people can come and see me. I make myself accessible and available, and you know, you don't have to try. You know, you're not trying to fit into an existing template or mold, and I think that's maybe where people fall short a little bit, because they're just that, you know, some, I guess, models, they're not quite compatible with what we're aiming for. I don't know. I'm sort of wandering here now. I do realize, Greg, that you need to rock and roll in about 7 or 8 minutes here. So yeah, I just wanted to just wrap on that for a bit, because this idea that, you know, we actually do have to look after ourselves, because if we don't, then, you know, we just won't be we won't be able to inspire others as well as ourselves, and bring more joy and beauty into the world, you know, however that is that we do that. And I think too, you know, when you're up in front of, when you've got a group of people who are, you know, and you're sharing your experiences. I know you've done conferences and things like that. I haven't really had that experience where I've spoken to large groups apart from the podcast here. It's very different when you've got a group of people in front of you. But I can imagine that, you know, and I would imagine that's a different kind of a buzz than, say, playing a large gig as a musician, when you're talking about something that really brings you to life, you know, that's like, you know, this is a really enjoyable topic for me to talk about. And so I don't know if you wanted to just share on that.
No, great subject, Phil. It's funny because of itself, I mean, performing is a wonderful thing. And I also used to wonder, why do I feel it down after it? I didn't understand, because I think it's a really wonderful thing to do. You know, I didn't even get that myself. People liked it. It was, why did I, you know, I didn't understand why it also felt a low after a good performance. I just couldn't work that out. And a lot of people do feel that. It's an odd thing. I think what is interesting, how it's different for me when I talk to a large audience live, is that, you know, the pressure's off. What I mean by this is, I realize as a musician, well, as a conductor, because you're often trying to please people, because you're having to interpret something. And after a while, I started to second guess myself. I'd feel the music, and then I'd started to think, oh, how should I interpret this? I started to lose my own voice. I felt a little bit. The thing, and then when I do a conference or something, I mean, I'm relating my own experience, so it's kind of like all of a sudden it just takes off. It's really cool. So there's no little doubter behind me, or there's no conditioned kind of little automaton sort of turning me this way and that. It's a funny thing, because even with conducting, I used to think, okay, well, this sort of thing looks good, you know, and while I wasn't necessarily, there are some conductors who look absolutely beautiful, and they practice in the mirror all day, believe me, to get that way. and because it's about the music, but there's a bit of both. Sometimes you're a bit of the show off. And there's certain gestures you do that the crowd love, and I used to really wrestle with that. But I thought, well, the crowd like that. The audience like to see a conductor. They get a feeling of, because it's a little bit like an actor. You probably live through that. It was so confusing to me. I started to, but I guess it was me pushing me in the direction that I went. Although I wouldn't have had those pushes had I not been doubting myself beforehand. But like, I love talking about this stuff in a live audience. I remember the first time I did was 2016, and I'd been to Orange in New South Wales to do an astral travel course. A psychotherapist had invited me there, so I went there, and she had a whole bunch of people there. It was great. First time I'd done one away from Brisbane, and and then she said, "Oh, Greg, can I give you a psychotherapy session?" I said, "Well, what do you want to work on?" Yeah. And I just like to give you, I'd like to offer you one as like a gift kind of thing. And I thought, geez, I don't know. And she said, okay, well, let's just see what's there. Now, how's this? I kid you not. This is before I'd done any public speaking in that way. Anyway, she took me out. I don't know what we did exactly, but I just remember having this vision of myself speaking to larger groups live. And I came out of it going, whoa. And I had this real, that was cool. Couple of weeks later, I get offered to go and talk. It was the first one on the Gold Coast, Paradigm Shift, I'd never done it before. Now, that was interesting. I thought, so by going along, she unlocked something in me. It made it conscious. She made it conscious. So to make it conscious seemed to give that concept more potence in my field. And then that was plucked out somehow. Like, I never entertained that notion of doing that. It's a little bit like when I first started teaching astral travel courses. I'd written a book on astral travel, came back to Oz. People said, can you teach it? And I said, I don't know. I'll share with you what I've done. I don't know. Let's see. And people would come for the first courses, and I'd be looking at them just so suspiciously thinking, why on? But I remember I was seeing in the astral, I was seeing myself teaching people how to astral travel, how to astral project before I actually did it. And that was kind of what led me. And then when I actually did it, though, I was so suspicious of people. I'd ask them, why have you come today? And they said, oh, well, they look at me like I'm mad. Like, we're coming to learn astral travel. And I go, why would you want to learn astral travel? And the reason I say that is because, I got a free pass. I never knew what astral travel was. I thought these people are weird. How do they know about astral travel in the first place? Well, where are they coming from? And these are the first people I'd met who were interested in it, because I hadn't spoken about it. I'd written a book. And then all of a sudden I was public, and I was thinking, whoa. It was so funny. And so even though I knew that was part of my future, or part of what I was going to do, by having seen it already kind of in my consciousness, the mortal aspect of me was still kind of back going, what, watching. It was really, and I was actually laughing at my own reaction, where I was suspicious of people coming to my own course. Hilarious. Like, yeah, over time I've gotten used to it, and they're quite normal, just like everyone is actually. But I guess I wasn't sure what I was opening. What kind of Pandora's box was happening here. But it ended up being positive, because I thought, like everything you question, and then whether the first couple of my students to have these experiences that were so positive, and I just thought, okay, this is good. This is how it should be.
I love it. Yeah, it's so cool. Now, we're going to wrap things up, and I just want to bring up your website here and some of your events that are coming up. You've got 2 Reiki courses coming up at the end of April. This weekend, you've got a Reiki 1 course, and then you've got a Reiki 2.
Out. That's right. The one I'm pointing to it. I don't think you can see, but the Reiki 2 course is still a couple left, and then this one's booked out. But we do the return to home thing is going to be really interesting. That's the first astral one I've done for a while with a sound healer, but we'll be doing more of them.
Oh, that's cool. And just on the just quickly to catch up now. So on top of obviously Reiki teaching and astral projection teaching, you also have a toy room that people can contact you about for meditation type expanded consciousness experiences.
Yeah.
And so would you just like to give a quick synopsis of what that's all about?
Yeah, well, look, I also like teach meditation, so sometimes I use the pyramid for that as well. And I've got this perfect chair thing, the NASA design chair, which I've shown you. But I've got this Pandora star, which you can see on the services tab. Um, yeah, and so that's really cool. This is this strobing light thing that is quite out there. Actually, you get these kind of yes, yeah. Anyway, it's a thing itself that helps people get into deeper meditative states, and it's kind of unlocks, I think, that lateral aspect of the brain. So it uses frequencies to kind of open other aspects of your brain that wouldn't normally be happening. It's funny seeing my side scrolling before my eyes. Is kind of weird, but so there's all these different programs you can do, as you can see on the light. So people come for that. It's pretty cool. And then I've also got, well, pretty soon I will be putting up this Vibra Lounge, as I've spoken to you personally about. So I'm still experimenting with this. Is vibrating frequencies going through an actual lounge that you lie on, and you hear the music, and it's really cool. I remember I first try one out a few months ago, and I was so blown away. So I had to get one for myself. At this stage, I'm still playing with it, and I'll be offering it soon as a service. But yeah.
Want to go for a ride? All right. That's exactly. So cool, man. I love what you I love what you're about, and you've you're a way shower for many people, including myself, because you're a few steps ahead. And I'd like to say uncharted territory, but I think what it is because it's a highly personal and unique journey for everyone. There's it's nice to know there's a few out there that have you've taken a few shots, and you've hacked away a few of the branches, so that some of us can sort of see there's a bit of a way ahead. And I'm so grateful for your time tonight too, brother.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you.
And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been hanging out with us. And Chrissy has just put a comment in. I wouldn't mind trying Reiki. When I put hands over people, there is this kind of buzzing effect, weird. And I'm like, girl, you just keep going with that and keep playing. And so that's brilliant. So Greg, thank you so much once again, brother. You have yourself a beautiful, wonderful, amazing week and weekend. Have a great time at the Reiki 1 course. And
Thanks,
no doubt we'll be in touch again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm about to jump into an infrared sauna. Because it's a cool Brisbane, infrared sauna, sensational. I'm jumping in one tonight, so that's another toy. I haven't got one yet, but I'm going someone else's.
Man, you're gonna have to start up your own theme park or something, aren't you?
I know.
Love it.
Thanks,
all right,
Bill.
thank you.
Love it. Thanks very much. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, brother. All right then. Thanks, everyone. I'll catch you later, right? See ya.